Okay, everyone, we will call this Murraysville Council meeting to order. Before we get to our regular agenda tonight, we have a presentation by Andco.
So you folks might remember me from prior meetings, 'cause I've been here for about 20 years. But over the last year, my firm, Morrison Fiduciary Advisors, merged in with a firm called Andco. And so going forward, we are going to be Andco servicing you folks. Chris Brokaw from Andco and I will be jointly working on the account. And everything we've done in putting this together was designed that what we've done for Murraysville over the last 10 or 20 years, repeat and be consistent with. And so jointly we'll provide those services and make sure that takes place. I'd love to sit up here and deliver the report, but it's Chris's turn to do so. So I'm going to step aside and let Chris make a short presentation, unless you folks have any questions for me.
Just a presentation, thank you.
Thank you.
Well then, I don't know. Now I have two microphones. But thank you for your time this evening. I want to reiterate what Frank said. We're going to be working together. We have been working together for the last 9 months on your account, and we will continue to do that going forward. You can expect the same kind of service. I might say even better, because there's two of us instead of one. And just so you know who I am, I'm from Pittsburgh. I work out of Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, born and bred. The firm that I work with, $100 billion in assets under advisement. We work with 700 different pension plans, and about 2/3 of them are public plans. So that's a bit about us. Your portfolio is doing well, 100% funded or close to 100% funded, meeting your actuarial return objectives. The portfolio ranks over the long term in the top quartile of similar municipal pension plans. So performance is good. We want to keep that moving forward. And that is, that's my presentation for tonight. Can I answer any of your questions?
Just one question. The M and the B can sound alike. Is it 100 billion or million?
Billion, yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, in context, our firm managed about $2 billion. These guys run over $100 billion.
Yeah.
And out here in Western Pennsylvania, they probably have about 20 accounts. They do Allegheny County. We now do Beaver County and Erie. So we have actually 5 or 6 employees in the Pittsburgh market. This would be our largest, Andco's largest, non-headquarter office. And, there's 4 or 5 guys down there that have been doing business up here for 20 or 30 years.
That's correct. Well, thank you.
Just one other thing, you folks have approved a couple of our private real estate and private debt. I know that's a little bit of a work for council to fund. What are these guys coming up with? But, they've all worked out really well. Each one of those investments has generated returns equal to or better than what we originally forecasted when we made the presentation to the committee to do so. Sometimes top 10% over the last several years is this diversification into these higher yielding, less volatile assets, so we're not so reliant on the stock market. And that's turned out to be pretty good for us at this point.
Okay, wonderful. No, thank you both.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll be seeing you folks soon.
Thank you.
Take care. Okay. Thank you to Andco for the presentation. Our pensions continue to be very, very well funded. But with that being said, we're going to call the regular meeting to order. Can I please have a roll call, please?
Dr. Lee Corns. Here. Mr. Stepanovich.
Here.
Mr. Spadaro.
Here.
Mr. McKenna.
Here.
Mr. Dice.
Here.
Mrs. Ling.
Here.
Mr. Lemak.
Here.
Mayor Sinan.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Mr. Nestico, do we have any unlisted amendments this evening?
On this evening.
Thank you. That brings us to our consent calendar items, just the minutes from the February 15th meeting. Any questions or concerns about the minutes? Can I have a motion, please?
A motion to approve the consent calendar items.
Second.
Let's go Tony and Jamie. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. That brings us to comments by the mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Dice. Michael's ahead of me tonight, he's already got them up. The first announcement is for tax aid, brought to you by the ARP Foundation. Tax aid preparation at the Murraysville Community Center. Appointments are required. No walk-ins will be available. The phone number to call is 412-394-8959, and the last day is April 7th, so don't wait to the last minute. Murraysville Recreation's Hot Chocolate Hikes. The next one's Saturday, March 25th, Townsend Park, 10 a.m. You can always get any more information at murraysvilleparecreation.com or by calling here extension 131. The next glass recycling pop-up collection event is Saturday, March 18th at Veterans Field parking lot, 4200 Sardis Road from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And Republic Services. Residents are also encouraged to support the Loaves and Fishes Emergency Food Pantry by donating non-perishable food items. Food pantry volunteers will be at the pavilion accepting drive-through donations during those same hours. We're coming up on our spring Clean Up Your Yard leaf collection, Saturday, April 15th and Saturday, April 29th. To schedule a pickup on one of these collection dates listed below, please fill out the curbside leaf collection program form on the website. There's a 20-bag limit each collection date. The deadline to sign up for each date is Thursday before the pickup date. Remember, you have to sign up for it. They just won't stop at your house. They just have a list of addresses based on those forms. Last but not least is Egg My Yard. It's brought to you by our Recreation Department. It's registration open until March 24th. Easter pet photos Saturday, April the 1st. Registration again open to the 24th. And then the Easter drive-through in cooperation with the library partnership is Wednesday, April the 5th. There'll be more upcoming information. MurraysvillePARecreation.com or extension 131. And that concludes my comments, Mr. Dice.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor. That brings us to comments by the Chief Administrator. Mr. Nestico?
Just reporting that Officer Brian Sadler was sworn in today as Sergeant, Police Department. No other comments for this evening.
Awesome. Thank you. That brings us to community input. Can we see if anybody signed up? Okay. We are going to start with Donna M. Sure.
I am a Murraysville resident on the amphitheater.
Pull the mic down.
So people can hear you.
Some comments on the amphitheater.
For the record, can you just do your name and address for the record?
Donna M. Bankowski, 3310 Hermar Court, Murraysville, Pennsylvania. I've been here at least 50 years. So I'm not telling my age, but I've been here 50 years. And all my children were raised here, went to Franklin, etc. And some of them still live very near here. Sometimes we think that's a very wonderful thing, and I know there's one in Monroeville, we've been there. There's one in Greensburg, we've been there. But I have several concerns about the amphitheater. One of them is very simple, it's just the traffic that it brings in. Second, what kind of entertainment will there be and who selects that? Because our children are very vulnerable now. If you bring in a lot of hotshot rock bands and stuff, we're going to have a lot of kids drinking, doing drugs on the side. I mean, it comes with the territory. That is my concern, to keep our community as clean as possible and as safe as possible. Now, there can be really nice entertainment brought in. You just don't want old people's oldies bands and things like that, although those are popular still, the 50s, 60s, 70s music. But my concern is for the young people, because it will be a gathering place. And my concern also is the expense of it. A lot of traffic will be coming in our area. We don't need more traffic in our area. I think with what's going on out everywhere, we're trying to, it's not that we're not inviting people into our community, that's not the point. But for what purpose will they be coming in? To drink and party, or will they be coming to better our community? And second and third, fourth, and fifth reason, what about the cost? I mean, do we need that expense right now in our community? We could take that money, we could put it into, the parks we already have are wonderful. We have so many here. We're really blessed with how many parks we have here. And why don't we improve those? Why don't we make the bike trails better? Why don't we make, and even the community expense on the bike trails that we have now that are sometimes a problem. I've spoken on that before here. So those are my concerns, mainly the young people, the expense, and what are we going to invite into our community. Thank you for listening.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That brings us to Judy Petrush.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Judy Petrush. I live at 29 Buena Vista Drive, which is the East Mannerdale voting area. And I wanted to introduce myself to you all because I am running for magisterial district judge. Charles Conway decided to not seek re-election, so it's going to be an open seat, and I am seeking to cross-file. I am a parishioner, and my family, we're parishioners at Mother Saris Church. I'm a graduate of the University of Pittsburgh, undergraduate, and also the University of Pittsburgh School of Law. I am currently the past president of the Westmoreland Bar Association. I was elected to the board of directors and into the presidency of the Westmoreland Bar Association, and I served as president from 2021 to 2022. So I'm past president up until this coming April. I'm an assistant district attorney. I've been an assistant district attorney since 1995. I handle a lot of the child abuse cases and sexual assault to homicides. So I would like to also say that it has been my privilege and my honor to work with the Murraysville Police Department. I think we have a wonderful police department, and it has just been my honor to be able to work with them. So I want to thank you for this opportunity, and thank you all for everything that you do to make Murraysville such a wonderful community to live in. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to Jeanette Pavlik.
I have nothing, thank you.
All right, thank you. For the good of the order, would anyone else like to give public comment? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to liaison comments and committee reports. Let's start to the left this time, Matt.
The Parks and Recreation meets the second Tuesday coming up. The mayor kind of hit on the things that we have coming up, just the Egg My Yard, just make sure that, you know, you do register prior to the 24th of March. And then we have the drive-through on April 5th for that. The only new thing for with the Parks and Recreation is the foundation has been meeting with the Hill Group, and what they are is they're a commission that does, we look at the long-term view for the parks and whatnot in Murraysville and how the foundation uses that money to do things. So that's been ongoing. They've brought in, you know, people from the community, the people on the Parks and Recreation Committee. So it's a great thing that's just continuing to go so that we can steer the direction of the foundation where it would be best suited. So that's about it.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
Jamie?
The school board meets March 20th.
Awesome, thank you. Jamie?
Chris and Frank did an update for me tonight, so I think we're good.
Easy enough. Tony?
I missed the last meeting, I was out of town, so they meet in 2 more weeks.
Awesome. Carl?
Yes, the foundation met, and this is the Parks and Recreation Foundation, as Mac had mentioned, and they met on Monday, February 20th. They were being conducted, if you will, or monitored, I wouldn't say monitored, but using the services of the Hill Group, who has had a lot of experience in the past in organizing foundations of such. Quickly, there were like a lengthy, good discussion, and I might say that we had, beyond the members of the foundation, we had community input as well, which was good. Several people attended, and we enjoyed that. And I might say that any of us here who would like to participate in the foundation, at this point, you know, we could use people to get your ideas. And that's, next meeting is going to be March 27th on a Monday. The themes that were covered real quickly, one was that interconnection of the parks and the ease of navigation between the parks, both physically and digitally. Technology to improve the parks, which is in-demand technologies, meaning that we will using technology to make the best of the parks. Multi-generational, meaning it's going to be a focus on the young, middle-aged, and the seniors as well. The programs would be coordinated, would be camps, classes, and leagues. We're also going to have try to take advantage of the unique history and heritage of the area. In particular, we are the first community that provided a gas well, and we also have an export, which will be a functioning coal mine visitation at some point here in the near future. We're also recognizing that the infrastructure amenities will be necessary, which is basically restrooms and cell service at the community park. And that is about that on that. I might say also in the actual meeting itself, aside from the conduction of the Hill Group, we're working on, in the foundation, of a gifting policy, taking as a base, if you will, the community gifting policy, and we're going to fine-tune that to be what that would be. And also that there's discussion that there may be a donation to the community of the toll house and the schoolhouse, which is currently owned by the Sampson Group. And that is about it, other than to say the foundation, all of these things that we're thinking of, this is not being paid. It seems obvious, but just to state it, this is by donations, not from taxpayer funding. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you. Jason?
Yeah, Dane, thanks. I met with the library last Thursday, and in general, the programming is all doing well as far as attendance goes and circulation. They will be planning their strategy meeting sometime in March, so that'll be coming up where they plot out their programming for the following year and what they want to achieve. A few programs they asked me to mention that are upcoming is Read Across America Day. That's March 3rd between 10 and 4. Make a craft and enjoy fun activities that celebrate your love of reading. And March 6th, there's a documentary film series. And this month's pick is Mad Hot Ballroom. That's all. Thank you.
Only thing I'd note for FDMSA is they're sending out letters to local businesses that don't have proper functioning grease traps. Some of us on council might be hearing about that, but it's a pretty big problem they're having, so they have to do it. So that's about it. Moving on to our workshop items. We only have one item tonight, and that is a discussion on the rezoning request for the Redstone Presbyterian Senior Care Center. So at this point, we had a presentation by Redstone. We asked questions. We heard a lot from local businesses, or excuse me, local residents. So it's now time for council to just air it out. What do we think?
I spent some time looking at this a little bit after the presentation. So one of the things I try to keep in mind is we're talking about a rezoning request, not an actual development at this point, right? So where are they today? Where are the R3s compared to R2s? And, well, Redstone is one, the existing property. Marquise Place, across the highway. Georgetown Commons. And then generally in the east past Export and also towards Logan's Ferry, right? Most of these, and I did a little bit of measuring, are within a quarter mile from 22, right? So Marquise Place is 0.25 miles off 22. So is the proposed development. So I think it's within the perceived business district, which is a kind of above and on both sides of 22. It's not way up Klein Hollow. Now, there are concerns when you look at the comprehensive plan was mentioned by both Redstone and residents. So if you look in that, some of the pros are 16% of the population is retiring or projected to retire. So that's a loss of tax revenue for us, the EIT. And also, where do these folks retire to, right? So that kind of solves or provides them with, if this development were to occur, provides them with a place to potentially go. There's also a demand in the comprehensive plan for higher density properties, this R3, right? So it would meet that demand as well. However, some of the cons would be, I don't think it improves the efficiency of vehicular traffic networks that's mentioned in the comprehensive plans. So that would have, but I think that comes in phase if they were to come to us with the proposed development, that study. It does go against the vision of wooded hillsides that's in the comprehensive plan. I live further up Klein Hollow, and I'm impacted by that as well with some of these new housing developments that have taken away my wood side. So what are the risks I think council should look at? The risks, I believe, Redstone mentions they will not seek tax exemption, but that's not a guarantee, right? 5 years from now, they could pull that away from us. Could they sell the property after we rezone it? Is it not feasible anymore to build these structures? I don't know. And the other risk I saw with the presentation is if we don't grant R3 and they proceed with an R2 proposal, it impacts more of the land, more of that hillside that's already zoned R2 and would disturb more of the soil in with the wooded land. So that's just some of my thoughts to generate some conversation. But in general, it kind of fits the mold of the Marquee place, right? They have 118 apartments there. We're talking around that number, slightly less here. And they're also 3 stories. These are proposed 2.
No, well thought.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think
No, I think Jason hit on a number of things. One, just factually, they're 2-story, but with the garage, it ends on one side being 3-story. There is no guarantee that, and we were told by Mr. Dixon, and if you will, my feeling is I kind of trust what he says about, well, we're going to build this where we're not in any way thinking of selling this land or what have you, but there's no guarantee of that. I think there's a certain risk on that. Some of the community concerns I know with respect to the traffic, the bend and so forth, I don't know that that is really germane to this. And certainly traffic matters. And I do know because I live not far from there, the intersection of Klein Hollow and Old William Penn Highway, at some point that's going to have to be addressed because on a Friday afternoon at 4 to 6, I mean, it's no one knows what to do. It's a real traffic problem. And whatever gets done, meaning by Redstone, that has to be done separate from Redstone. I'm just a little bit, no, I wouldn't say a little bit, but I think I do have some concerns that, and it also goes to the fact of rezoning. Basically, it was set up to be R3, which has certain characteristics, and R2 obviously have different characteristics. So therefore, and it also, even though you could not build the higher density with R2, perhaps the idea was, well, let's let the development be as it is now with the current zoning of R2, which would allow construction of facilities, but just not the more dense facilities. So that's kind of my thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you. Jay?
I'll go. So I'll piggyback on a couple things. I've gone from both ends of this. From I was not really for rezoning that to leaning more towards the other way for a few reasons. Number one, I think some of the positives that Jason even hit on a few of them. The one thing is Redstone's plan was very good. Their ability to adapt to what the community had said. You know, originally there was possibly going to be an entrance over off of Arrowhead and whatnot. They completely revamped that to make it so that was not an issue. So that's much appreciated to see that. I think the biggest positive to this is that I think in Murraysville, it's a huge need for this retiring age bracket of people. I put my parents in that, for instance. You look at neighborhoods like Mannerdale Farms, Murray Highlands, Heather Highlands, plans like that. Some of the homes that are owned by people in this age bracket, you know, some of those homes, those people have paid all their lives to pay their mortgage off, and there's no way that they're going to go and double the mortgage they originally had to get some of these townhomes that are going in Murraysville to buy. Are they willing to kind of trade their home there, their single-family home, straight up for an alternative place to live where they don't have the maintenance and whatnot? Absolutely, I think so. So I think like that, you know, $300,000 to $500,000 range, but we're talking differently with rent, but, you know, affordable housing for people like that. I think one of the biggest positives it does is folks like that are going to retire and downgrade their home. It's just a matter of, are they still going to live here in Murraysville? I think that this type of community, this type of options for people keeps them in the community where their grandkids are, their families are and whatnot. And what it also does is I think, you know, you're going to take a home that's, say, worth $350,000 or $400,000 in Murraysville that needs updated, and a young family is going to move in there. We're bringing whole new tax base to the community, younger folks moving into the community that have the opportunity to buy a single-family home. So I think that's a big positive that it brings to it. The negatives, you know, like you had said, the wooded area there, but, you know, I think that property being owned, something's probably going to go in, so I'm not as much of that being an issue where it's at. The selling of it, that concerns me, and there's really nothing we could do other than trust the fact that they're not planning to do that, and I really do believe that, you know, they've kind of, Redstone has done a lot of good things in other communities, so I don't see that being that much of an issue there. And the tax exemption, that concerns me probably more than anything. Just, you know, we say we're not going to do that now, but who knows what, you know, that can be changed at any time. So those are kind of my positives and negatives. That's sort of where I stand on it. So.
Awesome. Yeah.
One of the Jamies. All right. So I'm like Mac. I think I've gone back and forth a couple of times. Kind of driving my concern here, and I'll touch on this in a little bit, but driving my concern here is really the reputation as a council that we may be starting to develop with regards to development and with regards to really our track record. So I'll kind of share my thoughts, and then I also have a question for Adam tonight, and then kind of maybe a proposal for a call to action to the rest of council. As Mac said, and I think Jason said, there is absolutely a need for housing at a variety of price points in our community. That variety, that range of price points, it fluctuates a lot from community to community. So I want to be clear that when I'm saying a range, that range looks very different in Murraysville than that range might look in other communities. And I want that kind of kept in mind. But I do think that there's a catch-22, right, to that pricing range. We do need to attract the right residents, but we also need to retain our residents. My parents owned a house here their entire lives. They still own the house here. We had renters in it when my parents retired. My dad got a great opportunity to retire. A couple of you, I think I was like going, help me find a house for my parents. There was nothing in Murraysville that they felt like they could purchase and then just stay in as their retirement home. They really wanted one-story living or maybe a nice option like Redstone Highlands. There wasn't an option right then, so they ended up purchasing a house in Penn Township. Great community. We're over there all the time, but I wish my parents were a little bit closer so that they could be a little closer for my children, for their grandchildren. That wasn't an option for them. We have invested so much into Murraysville to make it a great community with great amenities, but we are losing our seniors, and we attract young families and young people, but only to the degree that they can afford to. So the young families that might want an excellent school district, and they could afford the tax rate here, because our tax rates really set us apart from other communities too, especially our school tax. So young families might be able to afford to move here. That's still at a bit of a different rate than in other communities, if you know what I'm saying. Western Pennsylvania, Westmoreland County, we're not growing. We have really worried for years about a loss of residents. I think that, again, we've put so much effort into making this a community that people want to live in, but I don't know if we're providing options for that and opportunities for that. I was part of I think we all were, but the comprehensive plan the last time we had visited it and talked about it. We had really talked about the need then to look at our zoning and to revisit our zoning, because we knew that our zoning map may not be exactly how we wanted it. We haven't really done that. Maybe we could do a subcommittee. We had talked about doing that and putting a subcommittee, but we didn't. Because we didn't, suddenly we're making remarks up here about seeing spot zoning requests come through. We're seeing that because maybe we're a little behind the times, where we could be with maybe just sitting down and looking at our entire zoning map and saying, hey, we are the council. We can control, we can orchestrate exactly where we want R3. And we know we want it. We know we need it. That's been identified. We can look at our zoning before the individual requests are coming to us. Try to ensure that it's where we want it to be. Try to ensure that we have the commercial corridor and that doesn't bleed out with some of those rezoning requests that we've talked about. I don't want to be seen as anti-development. I don't. There's always a risk with any development, but I think it's key to remember, number one, let's say that Redstone Highlands, we approve it and they sell the property. That doesn't mean that the next development automatically gets approved. That still has to go through planning commission. That still has to come to us. So even if it did get sold, that's not necessarily a terrible thing. I would rather it not. I obviously like the idea of it's Redstone Highlands pitch. That's why we're here. But if it's sold, that's not the worst thing in the world. We still retain control there. So, and I think that's kind of my big key. And I guess my last question really for Adam, with the tax exemption, they're giving their word that they would not file for that. Is there a legal way to lock them into that for a certain amount of time? Could we create some sort of a contract or make that a part of this if we considered the rezoning request that they agree not to seek it for years, at minimum 10 years, at minimum 20? Not to put you on the spot, you can always get back to us if you'd like, but.
No, I think the difficulty right now is that the zoning request is not attached to any proposed, development. The zoning request is separate and apart from the ultimate end use, right? So at this point, I don't know that there is a great way to ensure to this council that this becomes a tax payable development. You are trusting the word of the developer that they're going to A, use it for what they intend to, B, they're not going to sell it, and C, they're going to and see they're going to continue to pay the taxes.
And should we approve the rezoning request? Let's just pretend, should we approve that request? And then should they not sell it? Should they start to really come before us with the actual development and looking for that approval where we would be looking at things like traffic and emergency vehicle access? At that point, could there be a condition related to the taxes attached to final approval that they would?
That I would have to look into. I don't know that it's appropriate to attach it at this time, but I
No, of
think
course not.
once you'd have a more firm development, I think it's something that could be explored.
Okay, that's perhaps comforting to know if we reach that point. Yeah, so I guess I'll just kind of summarize with, I went back and forth too. I really do love this community. I really want to be extremely cautious what's happening to individual property owners' rights to enjoy their property, their views, et cetera. But I think there's really a critical need for this. And I think it's important that we do have investors willing to invest in our community and wanting to come to our community, particularly when those investors want to provide something that we've said we needed and was a priority for us. I think we have to be cautious because there are absolutely risks, but there are risks to every single development that we have come before us. And I think that's why we're here, right? That's our job, to weigh and to steer.
Absolutely.
I appreciate everything that everybody has said and, the discussion that we're having. On my end, I just feel that there are too many unknowns and uncertainties involved in this whole thing. I believe that if we do want to look into developing Murraysville, that it would be nice to make sure that we had a return on whatever that was if we're going to rezone. So with this, even though there is that promise to pay taxes, if that was, in my opinion, if that was such an important thing, then they would also be paying that full tax on that original development that they have right now. So I just don't have the confidence that that's something that will last, because constitutionally, they have the right to file for tax exemption. So, and we're not even at Planning Commission yet. What if they go to Planning Commission? It's not approved. I know there's a lot of what ifs here. What will be developed then? It's zoned for R3, therefore we have less control over what it is once somebody buys a land. So long as they conform to the ordinances and the zoning, they can kind of do whatever. So to Mac's point, I mean, my mom is at Concordia, so I mean, I kind of can relate to everything here. As far as, the retirees leaving their homes, they're going to leave anyway, and new people are going to come in. Whether they stay here and live at a place where there's no tax collected on where they live or live somewhere else, we're not realizing that potential that's there anyway, since it's not a development that is, contributing essentially to the emergency services and everything like that. I understand that Redstone on that original development is doing a contribution to those emergency services, but just reality is that age group is going to be calling emergency services more likely, more often than other age groups. So is that even, what's the word I want? Is that even comparable to what the actual cost is, what the contribution is? So I just have issues with the unknowns, I guess is what I'm saying, and I hate to rezone when we don't know exactly what it is that's necessarily going to be there. So that's all I have.
Good point.
I'll just say a few things real quick. I agree with a lot of things that was said. There's a lot of negatives naturally. The main issue here again is, do we want to rezone something again? It seems like every time a project comes into Murraysville, they come up with the idea they're going to change the rezoning. And that's what we've been doing to a lot of the properties. So that's the biggest question here. Do we want to keep rezoning these properties to come in, or do we want to keep the zoning we already have in place? So that's an issue right now. And as for the homes, I think these homes are looking, I don't think some of our senior citizens are going to move in those. They're about $700,000 homes. They're not $300,000.
Right.
I think the cost was around $700 and more. So these people live in Heather Highlands that has $300,000 homes.
Well, no, but not for this plan. You're saying
I'm
like
just
the other
using that
ones.
as an
that are-
example. They're not going to leave Heather Highlands, sell their house for $300,000 and go in there and move into a $700,000 home. So it's just, doesn't add up sometime. And as for them selling the place, you never know what can happen. They could say, we're not going to sell the place, and then 6 months from now, they get the approvals, and they go into bankruptcy, which a lot of big companies do. There's no control. They go in bankruptcy, and what are they going to do? What's the ultimatum for bankruptcy? Sell the ground. So those are a lot of concerns.
I tend to agree there are a lot of concerns with this, and I just echo the sentiment that, you know, we've had a litany of rezoning requests, and I just can't move past the fact that it was zoned as R2 whenever it was purchased. And it's the same with the Figione property. You buy it as one thing and say it's more economically feasible if you rezone it for us. Especially considering the amount of residents who came out who were not in favor of this, it's definitely concerning to me. I think every rezoning we've ever done, we've had no public pushback. So, but at the same time, the points are well taken that this might be something Murraysville needs. So, at the very least, it sounds to me like it's going to need to be an agenda item for vote on the next agenda. And I would say that we should word it in such a way that it doesn't presuppose a up or down vote, and we'll simply see what the yeas and the nays do, and we'll take it from there. So before we move on, would there be any closing comments?
The bench, one, the Planning Commission did not approve it, okay? And also, the cost, and I know my wife and I have looked at this, like a two-bedroom apartment there are some families, I believe we could afford it, but you're talking at least $50,000 a year, every year. And if you wanted their premier apartment, you're talking $5,500 a month. So you're talking $66,000 a year. So there are certain people can afford that, there's no doubt about it, but it's not, the average person in Murraysville, maybe they could afford it, but there's a lot of people in Murraysville that's out of their range. They'd like to stay in Murraysville, but they can't afford Redstone.
I just want to circle back, you know, a final time, I think, to just our zoning in general. Tony, you were on with me when we denied the R3 request in Cohasset Court. At that time, we had discussed as a council that we really did want to take a look at our zoning as a whole, because we know that just the nature of the world of industry, of commerce, of commute has changed. And we really did want to look at our zoning as a whole and see if we might want to make some adjustments. That never happened. I'm not saying that this property should be rezoned, not at all. But I really feel that we're seeing so many sudden rezoning requests because we haven't looked at our zoning as a whole, as a council or as a subcommittee to see if it has kept up with the times and with our vision. At that time, we both said we definitely see a need for some potential rezoning, but not here, not in this exact spot. We had major traffic concerns there. But we never did go back and look at that zoning. I would like to propose that we have some sort of a subcommittee. I don't want to be seen as anti-development. I don't want to turn off investors. I think we may need to look at changing some zoning within our community. Maybe not when we sit down and look at it. But we're going to get that reputation. We already are, and it's not great, just because of the last couple of council meetings. And I think it put us in a really, kind of between a rock and a hard place, because maybe they weren't the right decisions to approve those rezoning requests, but we haven't looked at it, so we don't know that it's kept up with the times. I think we really need to do that so that when there are requests, we can say, you know what, we already looked at our zoning very, very carefully, very, very recently. This is why we're denying it, because there are other property opportunities for you, or whatever the case may be at the time.
Yeah, I agree with Jamie there. After she had gone after me and said that, that was a great point. I think that we do have to sit down and look at that. Jason made the point too, like, I find a big difference in going from like an RR zoning to change something there in the rural areas of Murraysville. I hate to go from Res R to B or, changes like that. This one's not quite there. I don't like just spot zoning changes like we're doing, but I do agree with Jamie that I think we're seeing these constantly come more than what we've had in the past, and it's probably because some of these need change. Jason made the point that, you know, when you look at the similar facilities like that, the Marquee Place and whatnot, I mean, they're all just off of 22 and Old 22, so, you know, it's still in that type of an area of Murraysville that, you know, so I'm not saying it should be rezoned or not rezoned, but I agree with Jamie that I think, you know, we want Murraysville to grow and grow the right direction that we want it to grow, and, you know, we probably have to look at getting our zoning and different things up to the current standards.
Yep. And we can definitely look at maybe on a future agenda, at least getting it on there, maybe having discussion of forming a subcommittee. The one thing I just want to be careful with is, or I guess I'm stating more my opinion, you know, Murraysville tends to have more stringent zoning because developers wish all of Murraysville was R3 as far as residential goes, because you get to build townhouses, they all sell for as much as a regular house, and you make more money. And one of the things that I was real big on is, hey, I get it, develop the corridor of 22 as a business district, but when I look at the developments that come in a lot of our neighboring communities that have easier zoning, they are shoeboxes that are all siding that I don't think are up to Murraysville standards, and I don't necessarily want to make it easier for developers to come in and do that. But we can certainly look into where our zoning is at and what we want to do at a future meeting. So message received, we'll look into that.
Okay.
Okay, any other closing comments or concerns from council? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to our action items. So that brings us to 13A. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to authorize approval of ordinance number 1070-23, an ordinance accepting a lease for oil and gas rights for approximately 30.5 acres of municipally owned property, Volshik Park,
Teresa.
at tax map number 49-21-03-0-101.
Second.
Jamie and Jamie. Mike?
Yes, this is for an oil and gas, a lease of the oil and gas rights under Kovalchik Park. We put the item out to bid, and the only bidder was Apex Energy, offering $2,500 per acre at the outset, and also an 18% royalties once production begins. So it'll be an upfront payment of just around $75,000 to the municipality, which will assist in some of the park upgrades that we are taking, or we do have underway over there. So I'd ask council to consider approving this item.
Okay, awesome. Council, questions, concerns? No. Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, council. That brings us to 13B. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion to authorize approval of the 2022 Volunteer Service Credit Program, notarizing eligibility list for Murraysville Volunteer Fire Company and White Valley Volunteer Fire Company.
Second.
Carl and Tony. Michael?
Yes, just trying to pull the list here. There are several volunteer firefighters from the White Valley Fire Department that qualify for this tax credit, as well as a handful from the Murraysville Fire Company as well. So those individuals would receive a tax credit based upon their eligibility for this item that approving this item.
Awesome. Council, questions, concerns? No. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. For this next one, I'm going to abstain because my firm is the solicitor for North Huntington Township. Just out of an abundance of caution, I'm going to abstain. And Tony, you can ask for the motion.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to authorize advertisement of ordinance number 1072-23, an ordinance authorizing participation in an intergovernmental police mutual aid agreement for the purpose of responding to police emergencies in authorized jurisdictions. The proposed ordinance would add the township of North Huntington to a list of participating jurisdictions.
Second the motion.
Council, questions, concerns?
No?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Okay, thanks, Tony.
You're welcome.
Okay, that brings us to 13D. I'm going to ask for a motion and ask that somebody fill in the blank with a name.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Teresa Woban to the Library Board to fill the unexpired portion of a 3-year term ending December 31st, 2023.
I'll second that.
Let's go to Jason and Jamie. Questions or concerns from council? I think we've all met Mrs. Wubbin, very nice person. So with that, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. It is unanimous. Okay, that brings us to 13E. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion for approval of the quote for services to complete a repair project for the emergency preemption system situated on Route 22 and Old William Penn Highway in the amount of $16,660 with funding to be allocated from the Capital Reserve Fund.
Second.
Okay, Mike?
Yes, just briefly, the emergency preemption system is located on the various traffic signals down the Route 22 corridor and also on at least one of the signals on Old William Penn Highway. The system was installed roughly 10 years ago. It's having some issues. Some of the hardware is not keeping up, so it's not activating when emergency responders are traveling through those intersections. We had the company come out and give us a quote for services. We also had the police quote and inform us whether or not they were having issues at those locations, and they did confirm that those were locations that the system was not responding to the emergency vehicles. So we'd like to get the system back up and running properly and make sure that it does activate when those emergency vehicles are passing through, and so this would allow us to do that.
Awesome. Questions or concerns from council?
Mr. Nesico, is this something we would have a maintenance agreement on year after year?
We do have a maintenance agreement with the company. This aspect of it isn't covered under that maintenance agreement because this is for hardware that's kind of gone faulty after a period of time.
Okay.
So this isn't on the software side of things. This is the actual hardware detecting the vehicles coming through.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. It's unanimous. Thank you. That brings us to 14A. Can I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion to authorize a denial of a request by Fishone Enterprises, Inc. to rezone approximately 54.6 acres located at Westertown Road and Hilty Road. Tax parcels 49-12-00-0-051 and 49-08-00-0-012 from RR Rural Residential Zoning to R1 Residential Zoning.
Second.
Thank you, Tony and Jamie. I just note that at the advice of our solicitor, it was said, even though we had said in discussion, we didn't even believe it should be an action item because we were not in favor of it. Wes Long said he thinks that we should at least vote it down officially. That's why it's on here as a denial. And I would just note that whenever I do call for a vote, if you are in favor of denying it, vote yay, just so we're clear. So it's a little backwards. But with that being said, any questions or concerns from council? Okay, all those in favor of the denial, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. It is unanimous. Do we have any old business from anyone this evening? Okay. Any new business from anyone? One thing I was thinking is, it's been a while since we've taken a new photo. I think we used to do it almost yearly, so would anyone on council object to maybe at the next meeting, we all get dressed up and just take a new photo for the website? We try to make that happen, Michael?
Do that?
Awesome, thank you.
With Michael in it, too.
Yeah, you should be.
Not a problem. And I'd also like to ask council for a brief executive session related to contract and property-related matters.
Okay,
But there will be no action taken from that executive session.
awesome, thank you. All right, so I think we heard that there is no action coming out of that, so can I have a motion to adjourn to executive session, please?
Motion to adjourn to executive session.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Adjourn, thanks, everybody.